anime Souls.
Like any Souls-like fan, I'm quite accustomed to the process of dying over and over again until I've mastered a tough section. But playing through AI Limit was the first time I felt that sense of learned repetition before I'd even died at all. That's because,
not gonna lie,
aside from its
this looks
anime-inspired
pretty
art
boring.
style and a few minor abilities you unlock throughout the story, this by-the-numbers adventure is without question the most milquetoast and unimaginative game
Yeah,
I've
it
played
looks
in the genre.
it looks
It
boring.
pit me against boring and meager enemies, laughably wimpy bosses I was largely able to stomp dead without issue,
That's sick.
and a story with almost as little to say as its dull protagonist.
Oh my god.
In fairness, there's not much especially awful about what AI Limit is doing, apart from its regular crashes and bugs that send you falling through the floor, but there's almost nothing worthy of praise across this forgettable journey either.
Damn. Did it pay off?
AI Limit is set in a vague sci-fi universe where society has collapsed due to mysterious circumstances
They don't
and
explain
is
it?
now overrun with a bizarre black mud that is both toxic to all life and a delicious meal you eat to regain health.
I eat a little when I'm starving, and it hasn't caused big problems so far.
As an android called a blader, you were created for the sole purpose of restoring the world back to balance, which you do by killing almost everything you see. You'll unquestioningly run around the ruins of a civilization that apparently used a book of genre
One, two,
tropes
three.
as
One,
a
two.
blueprint,
Kingdom
complete
Hearts
with a
ass combo.
sewer that serves as the tutorial, and a poison swamp level that's mandatorily
buddy.
included per the Miyazaki Accords of
This could be just a boomer complaint. I don't know why we have to put annoying. Like, maybe I'm wrong here, okay? But I feel like as people, we've progressed enough. You don't have to make me do this boring ass, annoying ass section. Like, there's no way I make a game and I'm playing through some part of it. I'm like, this shit really ain't that fun. Well, I'm gonna do it anyways. Like, bruh.
of 2011, a legally
Y'all
binding
good.
statute that's so real
You don't have to
you
force
don't
me to
need
do
bother
this.
Googling it. The robotic nature of your blader also provides a convenient excuse for them to never exhibit even mild character traits as they speak in a monotone voice throughout the 30-hour adventure.
30 hours.
Crystallized substances?
Having a hazy setting and a forgettable protagonist isn't exactly unique to this type of game, but if the non-fantasy setting had you hoping this might be one of the ways in which AI Limit breaks the mold, nah.
Nah, they gotta do their own thing.
The actual action is largely an impression of better Souls-likes. You'll split your time between exploring dark and dangerous places, fending off these smaller enemies as you work your way to the next bonfire-like checkpoint, and confronting big menacing bosses with long health bars and deadly attacks. But that familiar structure
It just doesn't look
overruns
creative at
almost
all, you think?
immediately here, thanks to
This
a
damn
lack
near
of
looks like
game
AI
variety,
generated a
samey and empty
Souls-like.
levels, and combat that's overly simplistic and unchallenging. You'll swing melee weapons several times larger than your body, loose spells that shoot fire, lightning, and more at your opponents, and of course, dodge roll and parry to keep yourself alive. But while there's not much unique to be found in AI Limit's combat, the few new things it tries are mostly good ideas that make me wish it took more risks. The biggest of these mechanics is the sync rate bar, which fills up as you do damage and is drained when you use spells or get hurt. The higher your sync rate, the more damage you'll do. But if you
Oh,
take
that's
too many
cool.
hits or use too many spells, you'll find yourself in a weakened state, unable to use many of your abilities until you land some blows.
Oh, never mind. It's not cool anymore.
That rewards cautious play and allows you to cut through
Nah, I
boss
want to use the
fights
abilities I want to
quickly
use though.
if you manage to avoid damage.
Like they was kind of
while you
cooking.
press
You know,
the
I do more
attack.
damage,
It's
but
also
everything
nice
else,
to
yeah, you missed
determine
me.
how often you can use your spells by how well you play, instead of being limited by a mana meter or something like that. AI Limit even ditches the stamina
Oh,
bar
wait.
entirely.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that. Still the I don't like when shit works though.
A genre staple I largely find annoying, letting you attack without fear of running out of steam so long as you're paying attention to your sync rate. There's also a pretty neat system where you unlock 4 special powers that you can freely swap between in the middle of combat, like this one that turns your arm into a shield, or this ability that lets you make short, quick dashes from place to place. Unfortunately, the first of these abilities allows you to parry enemy attacks, and there's almost no reason to switch to any of the other powers once you have it, since almost everything can be pretty reliably parried doing this to the enemy. So while toggling between these to do some interesting stuff in the middle of combat is
I know
great,
I'm yapping a lot, but I really don't like when like skill trees and shit, and then they give you something that makes everything else irrelevant. Like there's no reason for me ever to go do this stuff. It's crazy.
concept, fights
Hey, what are we
rarely
doing?
play out that way. You'll mostly encounter slightly different versions of aliens that look like scrapped monster ideas from Stranger Things, and these generic robots with identical attack patterns, all of which are easily avoided or parried with little trouble. Plus, they almost always come at you one at a time. Boss fights are largely straightforward too, with extremely telegraphed moves that can, once again, be easily parried, stopping those big bads in their tracks as they forget what they were doing for several seconds while you slash away half their health. I mean, seriously, just look at this guy.
Oh my god. No, that's great. Nah, I don't even care if that's the first boss. That's just thing.
Bosses also only very rarely have interesting designs, like this guy, who's just a flying version of the same Stranger Thing monsters you've already been fighting. Many more are disappointingly recycled, either by almost immediately being reintroduced as common foot soldiers, or when they're just straight up reused in another boss fight later on. It's unfortunate because there are times where AI Limit clearly shows promise, like later in the story when the generic slow-moving bosses very occasionally make way for engaging battles against fellow bladers. Their movesets are more interesting and challenging, and they have their own sync rate bars that must be depleted through attacks and parries in order to reduce the amount of damage they do and open them up to devastating finishing moves. There's also 1 or 2 encounters where AI Limit tries new stuff, like a fight against a giant robot that sits at the end of the room trying to blast you with deadly lasers, and the only way to defeat it is by destroying the electrical equipment powering it as you cut through its minions. But these fights are few and far between, leaving you to slap around the slow-moving and much less interesting enemies that make up the bulk of the boss fights most of the time. Another thing that holds AI Limit back pretty significantly is how buggy it is. I had at least a dozen crashes, got stuck in the environment in ways that caused me to twitch bizarrely, fell right through the floor during boss fights, and once even continuously respawned over and over again at a save point that threw me through the map until I went to the PlayStation dashboard and closed the app. Some of these crashes happened when I was quite deep into exploring an area and far away from a checkpoint, forcing me to start over again through no fault of my own and lose materials in the process. In fact, nearly all of my most frustrating deaths came from straight up glitches, rather than fighting bad guys. There was even this one time where all the enemies became invisible, and I had to run through the entire area spotting enemies by their floating weapons. That's not exactly the kind of difficulty I was hoping for, but honestly, even that wasn't challenging. AI Limit is a Souls-like without any soul, providing 30 mediocre hours of dodge rolling and sword swinging that's good for little more than filling time. I sliced my way through repetitive goons in unremarkable locations, killed some pushover bosses who were dead before I thought to learn their names, and spent more time recovering from game crashes than learning anything noteworthy about the bland sci-fi setting or the characters within it. The stylish art style, smart sync rate system, and swappable abilities are interesting tweaks to the blueprint, but are ultimately too minor to leave much of an impression. If you're really hurting for more opportunities to scratch that Souls-like itch, You could probably do worse than AI Limit, but you could also easily do a whole lot better. For more, check out our reviews of Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Hey, also
and
W's ain't a
Xenoblade
blade.
Chron-
W's ain't a blade. But yeah, no, that shit sucks. Not gonna lie, watching this 9-minute view, I feel like I saw everything that I needed. And I'm disappointed.